episode 1 of Choppin with Chapman, the new weekly YouTube series where I do my best to help you build fluidity, dexterity, and mobility around this fantastic instrument called the marimba. We're going to focus primarily on building chops with 4-mallet marimba playing, because that is kind of my wheelhouse, what I enjoy playing the most and what I do the most, but we'll go through some 2-mallet exercises if I can think of any at any point. So for today's video, we're going to be talking about building chops in your outside mallets, because these are mallets that I find often kind of get pushed to the side when we're practicing exercises. There's a multitude of exercises for your inside mallets, but not quite as many for the outsides. So we're going to talk about some ways that you can build some control and dexterity in these outside mallets. Before we get into today's advanced exercise, we're going to start with a really basic one from The Method of Movement by Lee Howard Stevens. And all we're going to do is take this permutation, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1, and start to move it around the keyboard in a few different combinations. So starting in C major, it would sound a little bit like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. Highly recommend that you practice this exercise until you're comfortable with these outside doubles before moving on to the next step. So once you're really comfortable with this 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1 motion around C major, you can then start to move it around the keyboard, including different shapes. So for example, if we were to just move up chromatically each time, you would get this. And so on and so forth. Notice that with each new arpeggio or chord that we move to, there's kind of unique challenges that arise as we're shifting from different planes and different manuals and so on and so forth. The most important thing for right now is trying to make sure that with these outside doubles, the first stroke is going to come all the way back up to the same place that it started so that the second note can get the same articulation that we had on the first note. What I see from a lot of my students is this downstroke on the first note of the double so that we don't get any sound on the second note, like so. To really get the full effect of this exercise and work that outside rotation as much as possible, we want to make sure that that first note pops back up. This will force you to work that rotation a little bit more, and it'll also give you a lot more articulation through both of those notes. Okay, so now that you're comfortable with just that basic permutation, the next thing that we're going to do is start to move it around the keyboard in different inversions. So we'll start with C major, super easy, and we'll work through root position, first inversion, second inversion, and then root position again up an octave, like so. You can do the exact same thing walking back down the keyboard, starting in the second octave. Just like with our first exercise, you're going to want to run this through as many different keys and as many different arpeggios as you can, because new shapes are going to show up as you're working through different keys, and those will each present unique challenges as you're getting across them. For example, if I'm in D flat major, all of a sudden, new shapes are going to show up and new push-pull motions are going to have to be contended with, right? Same thing in reverse. The same rules apply. Try to make sure you're getting as much articulation as possible, and you're focusing on those doubles pulling back up every single time. Okay, so now that you've run your exercises through all the different keys that you can think of, and you're comfortable with the different inversions of the keys, I'm going to teach you the advanced version of this exercise, which I actually stole from an oboe book a few years ago, that I kind of adapted to marimba that I think works really, really well. So the first thing you're going to do is walk up the C major arpeggio with our 1, 2, 3, 4 permutation, like so. But this time on the way back down, we're actually going to come down the 5, 7 chord in second inversion, which would be B, G, F, D, right? That would sound like this. From there, you're going to walk up another inversion of the 5 chord, so that would put us in third inversion, F, G, B, D. And then to finish out that cycle, you're going to come back down the C major arpeggio, 4, 3, 2, 1. So the first measure or so of this exercise would sound like this. Nice and easy, right? That's going to be our basic shape for this exercise. So practice just this first measure as much as you can to get really comfortable with the shape that it's creating around the keyboard. Whoops. And the pattern that's presented there. So once you're comfortable with that first measure, moving on to the second measure, it's going to be the exact same idea, except everything is moved up an inversion. So you'll walk up the first inversion, major arpeggio, then down the third inversion of the 5, up to the root position of the 5, and then down the first inversion of the 1. Yeah? So put together, the second measure would sound like this. Right? Notice how it's just the same exact motions that we had in the first measure, just everything is shifted up. So the first two together will sound like so. Great. So the third measure is going to be the exact same shape that we just had, again, just moved up an inversion. This time starting on the second inversion of the major 1 chord. Notice I did something a little bit tricky in the third beat there, which was instead of just playing a normal 5 first inversion, like we would if we were following the same pattern as everything else, I added the 9 of the 5. So I get the same kind of melodic pull back down to the 1 chord, right? So if you're playing this exercise focused on just the inversions as normally presented, it won't have that same motion and it won't have the same sound as the others. So we'll go ahead and add the 9 on the 5 chord so we get that same, in this case A, that same melodic pull, A, G, back down to the 1 chord. Great, so now you're comfortable with the first 3 parts put together, they sound like this. Continue walking back down from our previous chord, and we're going to go to the first inversion of the 1 again, then third inversion of the 5, second inversion of the 5, finally finishing out on the root position arpeggio. So the last measure of this exercise is going to sound like this, starting on the first inversion, 1. And I like to end this exercise with a quadruple stop back on the root position 1 chord. But you can totally just keep the same motions going with 4, 3, 2, 1 to finish it out in the same way that you had the others. Like so. Totally up to you, whether you want to end it with a quadruple stop or the permutation. So all put together, the exercise is going to sound something like this. Very nice. So remember, any exercise only practiced in one key is useless. So what I like to do when I'm playing this exercise is I like to start with C major, work it through the relative minor, and then continue that pattern through the whole cycle of fourths or fifths. So for example, you'd play C major, A minor, F major, D minor, B flat major, G minor, and so on and so forth until you get back to the key of C, right? So that would sound a little bit like this. Don't accent the last note, like I did. And also play the right notes. But you get the idea. So like we talked about earlier, the key is just trying to make sure that those outside mallets are always popping back up to the same place that they started so that you're getting as much articulation and as much of a workout in those outside rotations as possible. So that's the exercise. I hope you find it useful. I know I have found it useful in my own playing. And if you have any questions about this exercise or you would like to see it written out, please just reach out and I'd be happy to send you the sheet music for it. Cool. Thanks for tuning in to episode 1 of Choppin' with Chapman, and we'll see you back here next week with another